And David, the celebration is not only obviously for French Canadians, but also English Canadians like yourself taking part in the celebration.
Right, right. That's true. Although many people around here know me if they receive an email from me as Mr. Quebec. The unknown fact that I have to reveal today is that, in fact, my ancestors were Anglophones from the city of Quebec, Quebec, the milk capital of Quebec, and the city of Compton, Quebec, right next door.
And just across the border from Vermont.
And just across the border from Vermont. The interesting thing about my family is that there's a document from the town clerk in Canaan, Vermont, that says my grandfather is buried in that cemetery there in Canaan. Well, I'll be damned if I can find where his grave is, because I know that on the other side of the border in Quebec, in Mount Forest Cemetery right there, that there's a great big tombstone that says this is the grave of Adalbert Ellis, who was a harness maker in the town of Quebec, and his father, my great-great-grandfather, interestingly, was the bailiff in Quebec. So I'm trying to figure out how an English guy who we think came from someplace in New Hampshire, we don't know yet, how did he get to be an official in the town of Quebec? And the other thing that's interesting about that town is that the leader of the town, a gentleman named Marcus Child, was very involved in the Patriot Rebellion, and he was on the Patriot side. And as I look at the genealogy, and this is where I think genealogy and family is important. Okay, I know that my great-great-grandfather was born in 1816. Okay, 1816. 20 years later, it's 1836. 22 years later, it's 1838. That's the middle of the Patriot Rebellion. What was happening to him? What was he doing? Huh? Was he on the Patriot side? Was he on the English side? And that's what I think is missing from students and people looking at their genealogy. Yeah, I know that they came from here and they did whatever. But to place them in history, and place them in the history of the time, to know what was going on in the history of the time, is really, really important. And as I hope if anybody saw the piece we did on the rebellion, how closely our history is linked right at the border, that those guys that were involved in the rebellion, when they got in trouble, they ran across the border. Louis-Joseph Papineau came down to Plattsburgh when things got hot up at the border. Yeah. And I find that interesting. I find that interesting to me, and I can't believe why nobody else does.
That's a mystery you want to solve.
Yeah, you bet. Not to mention where my great-great-grandfather came from.
Was he a patriot? Was he a loyalist?
Right, you bet your life.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. The Hartwells from Massachusetts went up to very, very rural New Hampshire,
yep,
where nobody knew quite where the borders were.
Right.
And so there was a dispute between Canada and the United States where the borders were, and there are 3 rivers up there, well, streams really, that define the border. This after the war, the Canadians said, we have all of this here, and the Americans said, no, we won the war, so all of this belongs to us. And the people in the middle, they didn't know what country they belonged to. So from 1834, 1832, 1834 to 1836, they declared themselves to be the Republic of Indian Stream.
Oh, no kidding.
And they wrote their own constitution and everything else.